It's not the event, the traumatic event that causes you to suffer. It's the narrative that you create around that event that causes your suffering. In this video, you are going to learn how you may be creating your own suffering, your own emotional pain and mental blocks. We're going to look at specific ways and example situations in which you may be doing this, as it's going to look a little bit different for everyone. I'm also going to share 2 ways that you can use to stop torturing yourself by creating your own suffering. Daily, practical things that you can do to begin integrating this and making the change today. So what do I mean when I say that you may be creating your own suffering? We tend to think that if a traumatic or emotionally distressing event takes place, that causes us to suffer. But if that were true, how do you explain how the same event can cause one person to go down a negative thought spiral, potentially causing depression, self-sabotage, a lack of self-confidence, and even affect your mental and physical health and well-being if left unresolved? Whereas another person can experience the same thing, a very similar situation, without it being followed by a similar chain of events. They may have their moment of feeling their feelings, feeling grief or loss or fear, sadness, whatever it may be, but then they're able to let go, to take away what they've learned from the situation or what they can use to help them move forward. And then they do just that. They just move forward, go on throughout their lives, not allowing this event to change how they feel about themselves. If it really was the event in and of itself that caused the suffering, then every single person who experienced that same event would then experience the same level of suffering. But that's simply not the case. A job loss or a divorce or even a sudden death or injury can severely impact one person, changing the entire trajectory of their lives from that point onwards. Whereas for another person, it may just be an unfortunate event that happened that has been properly processed and then released. So what happens is, most of the time when we experience a certain event, depending on our own preconceived beliefs, our social and cultural conditioning, the past experiences that you've had in your life, is going to affect how you perceive the event that happened. So for example, a divorce for someone could be the best thing that ever happened to them. It could mean freedom. It could mean like relief. Okay, finally, I can be my authentic self or do what I've been longing to do, but have been holding back from because I'm in this relationship, right? Whereas for another person, it could be detrimental. It could really take a toll on your self-worth and what you believe about yourself. And for someone else, it could even trigger a fear of survival, right? Or starvation. If you were dependent on your partner, on your spouse, financially, if you grew up in poverty, or perhaps you witnessed your mother go through something similar, and having your mother's emotions and the things that she was going through at that time being projected onto you, because we all do that subconsciously to a certain degree, you will have developed some sort of belief around money and around what this situation now that you're in means to you, what it means for your life. You may start to panic, fearing that you end up in a similar situation as your mom did. Whereas somebody else who has had a very different upbringing, that may not even cross their minds. And so they're not going to experience that same suffering after the separation. So this is what really determines how you perceive and experience the different events in your life. It's a combination of the past life experiences that you've had up until this point, of your conditioning from your childhood, your cultural conditioning as well, society, what sort of stories and beliefs society has led you to believe. Your brain is wired to perceive things in a certain way based on the information, on the data that it has from your life so far. Because this is so subjective and it's going to look different for every person, how you perceive a certain situation versus I do, breaking out of this pattern and rewiring your brain so that you stop creating suffering, the first thing you're going to do is discover, what are your narratives? What are these stories and this programming that you have? What sort of conditioning did you receive growing up? What sort of things did you see or experience yourself that have shaped the way you see life and you see yourself? So one thing you can do is just take out a sheet of paper, a notebook, and write some of these things down. You may already be aware of some of these things, and that's a great place to start. However, it's very likely that a lot, maybe even the majority of these narratives are subconscious, and it's not something you are consciously aware of yet. So another thing you can do is just to start becoming aware of how you are reacting to different situations throughout the day. Take note, especially of those moments where you feel triggered, where you suddenly feel sad or irritated, frustrated, angry, anxious, fearful, especially when it's disproportionate to the situation at hand. There's probably something there lying beneath the surface that you haven't fully acknowledged yet that needs to be resolved so that it can be released. Every time these similar situations come into your reality, you go back to that narrative and you continue to reinforce it and strengthen it. So what is that narrative for you? And there may be more than one. I'm going to give you an example of one that I discovered through a trigger, and maybe it will help you to think of specific examples in your life or keep an eye out for them when they arise. So the other day I was with my daughter. She was very upset and just having a moment. And I was there with her, navigating the situation as best I could. However, she wasn't quite calming down yet. And at that point, my husband walked in and see if he could help her find a way to calm down, right, to help her through this. But because I was already there, sort of in this interaction with her, when this happened, when he came in, I felt that he was like interrupting what I was doing. He was undermining me. He didn't trust that I was capable enough to do it on my own. All I was aware of was this feeling of anger and frustration, but beneath that was a feeling of fear. And it was a fear of being judged and a fear of being not enough. After taking a moment to just be with myself and my emotions, I realized that this is what I was feeling. This was the narrative that began to play in my mind. He doesn't believe that I can navigate this on my own. This must mean that I'm not enough. I'm not worthy just as I am. I have to prove myself to receive love. Once I realized this is what was going on, I let him know how I was feeling, and it was very interesting because he was completely surprised because that had not crossed his mind at all. And so he was like, no, that's not the case at all. So here I was creating this whole story in my mind, right? This whole narrative of how he's judging me. He doesn't think I'm enough. Maybe I'm not enough, right? I'm now judging myself. But when I actually confronted him about it, I realized that this was all in my head. This was a story that I was making up. And the longer I kept that going in my mind, the stronger it became and the more I believed it. Until I actually voiced it and realized, oh my gosh, like I'm just creating this whole thing. Okay, so let me know if this has happened to you before. It's a rude awakening. It's a little bit embarrassing and like a slap in the face. You believe something is one way and then you realize, oh my God, like that's not the case at all. That's just what I'm making it to mean. And when you have that situation where you realize, actually, this is not the case at all, but this is what I've been telling myself, come back to this video and let us know, comment below, because I think this is a turning point. This is a turning point to celebrate because it all starts here with becoming aware of these narratives that you have. Can't change them if you don't know what they are and you don't realize what you're doing. So with that said, one thing you can do to begin to discover what your narratives are is become aware of that inner monologue. What is your inner voice saying? What are you consistently telling yourself? Maybe someone is just having a bad day, or maybe they're just really focused on something and they're in their head trying to figure something out to resolve an issue maybe. They're in their own thing, but you want something from that person, or you're trying to connect with that person to communicate with them, and they're not responding. How do you respond to that? There are people who are going to understand that, okay, he's busy. Maybe he's just concentrated right now. It's all good. We can talk later. It has nothing to do with me. I don't need to feel any sort of way about this. And I go about my day doing my own thing. But if you are affected by this, and you start to feel like, oh, nobody cares about what I have to say, or why is she not listening to me? That's so rude. I feel so disrespected. If you notice yourself saying things like this, you have revealed one of your narratives. Things will happen. It doesn't have to mean that you are not enough. It doesn't have to mean that you are not lovable, that you are not worthy. It's you and your own thoughts and your own narrative, how you take that situation and spin it in a way that fulfills that narrative that you've been living from. So let's change that. And it's not going to happen overnight, but here are some things that I've been practicing that have allowed me to do this. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video and you're finding it helpful, hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. I'm going to be rolling out 2 videos every week on similar topics. With the example that I gave you with my daughter and my husband coming in, what I did that time was just take some time to myself before reacting, before talking about it. And that allowed me to understand what it was that I was actually feeling. Identifying the emotion, acknowledging that it's there, is the first step to separating yourself from it and realizing that I am not that emotion. If I feel sad, if I feel frustrated, that's okay. That's a feeling that I'm having, but that's not me. It doesn't need to mean anything about me. Once you do that and you just get quiet with yourself, then you can also begin to ask yourself questions. Like that day I asked myself, why do I feel this way? Right? He was just trying to help out, but I almost felt like it was some sort of rejection. And I had a lot of fear behind it. Why? Right? Why do I feel this way? What is it? What is the narrative here? Where is this coming from? And if you are in a quiet space on your own and you try to clear your mind so you're not overthinking things, just kind of allowing yourself to be with yourself, the answer tends to come. And if you don't find that's happening, or you find it too hard to get out of your mind in that moment, meditation is a great thing to help you begin to calm the mind. It is going to be important to calm the mind in order to do this, because when you are quiet and you go within and it's just you and your thoughts, you notice them, you're present with them, and so it becomes easier to identify them and to separate yourself from them. Another practical thing you can do is just begin to experience your emotions. Allow yourself to feel them. As I was mentioning before, when you take this alone time, part of being with yourself, it's not just about calming down, but it's also about allowing yourself to feel the emotions that you're having. This is a crucial part of the process. Your emotions are your messengers, and they are going to give you the clues, the information that you need to identify your narrative and begin to change it. And if you'd like to know more of a step-by-step process of how to do this, let me know in the comments, and I'd be happy to make another video that walks you through that step by step to help you avoid criticizing yourself, judging yourself, beating yourself up because of these different life events that you experience, is to be your own coach. Whether or not you have an actual, another person help coach you and support you through this or not, you must still and always be your own coach, because you are the only one in your own head, in your own mind, in your own body, experiencing the feelings, thinking the thoughts that you have. You're the only one who really knows what's going on in there, and therefore can really be there in the moment to catch yourself and to redirect yourself. That inner dialogue you have with yourself, the self-talk. It's not just about, positive affirmations and saying nice things to yourself. I'm talking about literally being your own coach and helping yourself shift the narrative in the moment when it's starting to write itself. So, that might mean the next time that your husband or your kid or whoever is not responding to you in a way that you believe you deserve or you believe they should, first noticing, okay, what are the thoughts that are coming from that? You catch yourself and you begin to shift the direction of that inner voice. I like to kind of say, wait a minute, or stop, something that's okay, clear turning point that helps me begin to pivot, right? Wait a minute, what's going on here? For example, if I'm trying to speak to my husband about something, but he's kind of, busy, and he's not responding, and I feel like I'm being ignored, and I'm starting to feel like he doesn't even care about what I have to say. Once I realize that I'm doing that, I say, stop, or wait a minute, is this true? What I'm thinking, is this true, or is this just a feeling? I don't know what he's thinking. I haven't asked him, so it's not a truth, it's just a feeling. Let's observe the situation. He's on his phone, or he seems to be concentrated or thinking about something. Maybe he's just zoned out. So talking yourself through this, right? Okay, what do I see happening here? Like, what are the facts? The facts are this, and how I feel about it is this. They're not the same thing. So you create that separation and realize objectively what's going on. The narrative can sometimes create this whole story that causes us to suffer. And this is how we get into these nasty, sneaky self-punishment cycles. And if you'd like to learn more about these self-punishment cycles and how to stop self-punishment, I've made a video on that, which I will link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video. And remember, you are your own medicine. You just have to discover it within you.